Okay, so this portion of the call is our neighborhood food network call. And I am very grateful to Anne for continually working on putting new resources onto our neighborhood food network website. And with the neighborhood food network, we are committed to invite, inspire, and excite our neighbors to grow food locally and to source food locally and create local food security one street at a time. And we have all kinds of resources that Anne is pulling together here. And Anne, which one do you want us to go to today? There we go. Okay. So here
And
we go.
before we get into that, I'd just like to say that one of our newest members of the Neighborhood Food Network is sitting here with me. She had dental work done, so I'm not going to put her on screen, but I have her here with me, and she's getting her gardens growing and growing in her backyard. So,
Oh, yay. Great. What's your name?
Sherry.
Sherry. Nice to meet you, Sherry. Thanks for being on with us today. We totally relate with the dental work. That's going to be me next week. Oh my gosh. We'll see. I hope I can make it to the call. I hope it'll all be worn off by then. All right.
All right, so go to curing because that's
Okay.
the article I wrote today. I just harvested my potatoes, my onions, and my garlic, so I thought I should write about that because I'm in zone 5 and I'm thinking that other people that are in higher zones have been already doing this. But like garlic, as I say here in the article, garlic is like the easiest crop to grow. You guys pick a little plot in your garden, put some bulbs in the October, November, whatever recommended for your area. And then basically, I say you don't have to really do anything, but I actually covered mine up just so the squirrels didn't come and dig up the bulbs. And then the spring, when they start growing, you basically take the cover off and you're done. You just leave it alone. But as far as once the outside leaves on your garlic start to brown, they say about a third of them, then it's time to pull it up, and you don't yank them out of the ground because each leaf is actually a layer around the clove. So you don't want to pull the leaves off because this is going to form the husk of your garlic clove to help protect it. So you're going to carefully dig around it to pull it out of the ground and shake off as much dirt as you can, but do not wash it. And then you're going to stick it in somewhere to dry, someplace cool, out of the sun to dry. And as you can see in the picture here below, this is my basement. This is where my growing racks, where I started all my seeds. It's now turned into my garlic drying rack. And
Hang on, let me interrupt you for a second here. So when I went someplace to some farm, they wash the garlic after harvesting it. But I've read recently that you don't want to wash it because you're adding moisture when that's the time when you want to be taking moisture out, right?
I think these commercial places wash it for saleability.
Right, so that it's prettier and brighter and whiter and all that.
They might be able to get it to market sooner. I don't know. But that's what I'm thinking. So yeah,
this place also had a giant room. It was like a greenhouse with a fan, and so it was like a lot of heat and fan. So they had a facility where it would be hotter and drier and constant air moving around it and all that.
Was that the place you were at when you were in the?
Yeah, it was in Vermont, the religious community, I think it was called 12 Tribes, and they served 300 families. So we harvested like 3,000 bulbs of garlic in 2 days, and we washed them and hung them up to dry in these. It was in the movie Communities Rising. So they washed them, but you're saying not to wash them.
And not to wash it. In fact, the funny thing was I was cleaning up my little laundry room here and I was literally thinking about mopping the floor. And then I was like, what am I doing? So now there's dirt all over the floor. So I don't really care. So once they're dry for a couple of weeks, then I'll cut the stalks off and cut the roots off and put them in my drawer.
Wait a second. I made a mistake then. Why did you not cut the stalks off before you dried them?
Because they just say not to do that. A lot of people will just tie them up and hang them. So there's a lot of different ways to do this. I'm just basically showing the way I did it.
Okay.
A lot of, if you have, so down you're in a more southern climate, so you can grow soft neck garlic, and you can braid. That's the one you can braid and hang.
Oh, okay.
So
I don't know what kind of garlic.
I have hardneck garlic, and that's the only type I can grow up here successfully.
I think I only grew hardneck garlic this year, but I also harvested it too late. So a lot of the stems were just falling off. And that's why a lot of the bulbs just fell apart.
Right,
Yeah,
that's why,
I waited too long to harvest them. And then I just clipped them off because they were all super dead and brown. And so I waited too long. I made a mistake this year, but I got a lot more garlic this year than last year. I got about 150 bulbs. Last year I only had maybe 10. So
yeah, I ended up composting some of mine. One thing I'm going to do this year as far as preserving the harvest, and I haven't written about that yet, is making some garlic powder by dehydrating some of it.
yeah, that's gonna be great. Okay, so garlic. So anybody have any questions about curing garlic, harvesting garlic and
There's a,
curing?
let me say, there's a lot of different ways to cure garlic. This to me was the most simplest, and that's what I just wrote about here. But obviously, there's a lot of information out there on the internet, and a lot of people will say that the articles I looked up did say not to wash it.
Yeah, yeah, and I have mine on a rack, thanks to you, Anne, this year on a rack in my basement with a fan running on them constantly, and it's been about 2 weeks. I think I'm gonna give it another week or so, right?
Right.
Yeah, and then so then before you use them, you just brush them off with a brush, and you can wash it then if you want, just before you use it.
Right. I'll carry mine probably back upstairs before I cut the leaves off and the roots, because it's gonna make a big mess, but that's okay.
Yeah, and then so then when you keep garlic in your kitchen, it's okay to just keep it on the countertop or by the,
Well, I keep it, I think it's better to have them out of direct sunlight. So I have a drawer,
Okay.
they have those bins that they sell with onion in one bin and garlic in another and potatoes in another. But we're gonna get to those potatoes and the onions next.
Okay, all right, let's go to onions. Aren't
So
they
these,
beautiful?
both these pictures are from my garden. The top one is my onions. I probably took that a week ago, and then I went out yesterday and saw that some of the leaves had fallen over. And when the leaves have fallen over, the onion will not grow anymore, and you can take them out of the ground.
Okay,
These I did not dig up. These I was able to pull. I mean, they're basically growing on top of the ground.
mhm,
So I pulled them up gently, put them in a wheelbarrow, and then this is in my garage. These are my garden stakes, and I laid them across two sawhorses, and then I put tape on each end so that the garden stakes wouldn't move. And then I just put the onions in there and let them sit for about 2 weeks so they get that hard papery shell like you see at the grocery store.
mhm,
These I also do not wash. So
okay.
as you can see,
Do
they're
you have a fan on those as well?
not today, not now, but I'm going to. Sherry, do you have a box fan I can borrow?
Mhm.
Yeah, I will tomorrow.
Okay, good.
Um, but they're in my garage. These also, do not keep them out of the sun. And I told you, Zen, if you have a covered porch, Zen's got this great
Yes.
porch around her house. If you get an exposure that doesn't get direct sunlight, you could take a piece of fencing and lean it up against the house, and then you can put your onions. Okay,
Here,
there.
I'll show you. Let me show you.
Selecting the right spot to cure your onions is really important. You don't want it to be in direct sunlight, even though we want them to dry. If they're in direct sunlight, then you do run the risk of actually sunburning your onions. So we don't want that. So for both garlic and onions, when you're curing them, what we want is a warm area that has really good circulation and airflow. So we're on my back deck, which has southern exposure here in the Pacific Northwest. Finding an area that's warm can sometimes be a challenge even in August, but it's also undercover. So the direct sunlight never hits this part. About 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I'll get direct sunlight that will come to about here.
I'll just fast forward to here. So this is just how she hangs it up. Just bends the. Whoops.
North Carolina homeowner.
All right. Yeah. Okay. You don't care about that. Anyway, so you can see how she did that. She just bent the stalk and then put the onion on top of the rack.
So Melissa Norris is somebody, I have her books, and I'm trying to get her to come on our show, but she's like super busy. But
Yeah.
she but yeah, it's really easy. And then once you, you know, 1 to 2 weeks, once they're completely dry, then you can, once again, cut off the roots and cut off this, you know, the stem, leave a little bit of the stem on, and then
Mhm.
put them in storage. And if Carol was, I don't know if Carol was on the call, but she had done the show on the Empower Hour about that it was a good idea to store them in your refrigerator. But obviously, if you're growing a lot of onions, that you might not be able to keep them all in the refrigerator. But I kept them in a drawer in my kitchen. I have a island that has 2 big drawers in it. I have potatoes in one and onions in the other. And it had a little cutout for the handle. I literally would cover that up with tape just to keep it as dark as possible.
That's a good idea. I have 2 bottom drawers on my island that just have things like aprons or like just things I hardly ever use. I could clear those out and load those up with onions and garlic so that it's handy. It's ready. I don't have to go
Right.
downstairs and get them. Yeah,
And I'll have to tell you, so you'll have to do some research with your area, but there's Long Day, which is in my area, Long Day onions for people further north, and then down by you, there's Short Day onions. And then also there's several different varieties that they will tell you in the seed catalogs what kind of storage they have. So I like Alyssa Craig. It's a great big huge yellow onion. And those have a very short storage, so those you would eat first. Then you have some other ones like the copra that you would grow, and there could be 6 to 9 months storage. I just cut one up 2 days ago from last summer, and it looked like it was a week old. It was, and I of course I can't remember which variety it was. But so yeah, look at that when you're looking at to get onions for your garden. You want to make sure that you're getting the right kind for your area, and then you want to look at the storage so that you can get long storage ones and then short storage ones.
And the other thing we learned from Carol from the Empower Hour show was number one, with with garlic, you want to chop them up. The best thing to do was a press, because in the garlic are chemicals that when combined make allicin, but the allicin's not there by itself. It has to combine with the other chemicals in the garlic when it's chopped or pressed up. Pressed is the best. And allicin fights cancer, but it takes 10 minutes for it to form. So when you chop up garlic or press it, you want to wait 10 minutes before you add it to your cooking. And
you also want to add your garlic. Not, a lot of recipes will say, put the onions and garlic and saute for 10 minutes. I always wait and put my garlic in at the last minute, because if you overcook garlic, it gets bitter and it's not good.
You want to wait till later. And the other thing with onions, she said that the smaller ones, if you're going to be buying them in the grocery store, are actually the best ones. They're actually the tastiest and the sweetest. But that's why you want to but anyway, but the bigger ones, you said before, they expire faster. So anyway, just it's okay. Let's go on to potatoes.
Oh, potatoes. So the top picture is my potatoes that I harvested yesterday or 2 days ago. I don't remember. The fun thing is that one of the neighborhood boys was over and said something about he wanted to learn how to grow potatoes. Well, I happen to have some in my kitchen that were starting to sprout. So I went and got them, came out, planted them, and this is only half of my harvest because I went and delivered the other half to him yesterday for his hard work. And so potatoes is another thing you want to not wash, and you want to inspect them and make sure none of them are bruised or cut. So you have to be really careful when you're digging them up. I used my hands and was literally clearing the soil away like I was looking for fossils.
Yeah.
And so another thing about potatoes is you want to make sure that as they're growing, you want to keep mounding dirt up on them, because if any part of this potato is exposed to light, as you can see in this last third paragraph here, that means the potato is exposed to sunlight. If you see any green on the potato, and you want to make sure you cut that out, because even though the green is chlorophyll, it usually comes with a toxin called solanine, and that can cause like severe stomach upset. And in the most severe cases can cause really severe illness, but it doesn't cook off. So make sure you, if you have any green potatoes, you cut them off. But basically you're going to take them out, brush off some of the dirt, do not wash them.
Mhm.
And then you're going to put them in a cool, dark place and get them out of the sunlight as soon as you can after harvesting.
Okay, and then so do you put them on a rack like we do with the onions and garlic and with a fan?
Or you can just put them you can put them in a brown paper bag, but make sure that I just lost you. But just make sure that it's in a dark area, dark, cool area. They say after they're cured to store them in a cool area, and it says, but the refrigerator's too cold.
Okay.
If
Could
the
I put them
potatoes
in,
real-
would you put them in like a milk crate, maybe with some straw, or would you
Yes.
do you want to put in an enclosed thing? Do you want it to be airtight, or do you want it to be open? in
Well,
there?
for those of you that live in areas where the ground doesn't get a hard freeze, you can literally keep them in the ground. But for those of us up here that we
Mhm.
don't, you can put them down in the basement. You can put them in milk crates.
Is it okay if they're touching each other like they are in this picture? Is it
Yes,
okay?
once they're cured, once
Okay.
the skin's toughened up a little bit. But like I said, inspect them for mold or disease, and any of, like, every now and then you might, when you're digging them up, you might slice into one and you just say, oh, well, I guess I'm eating that one tonight.
Yeah.
Now, last year I had some potatoes and I canned them. And I was really nervous about it because I thought, how good are these going to taste? And I ended up putting them around something I was roasting. I ended up putting them around in the oven and they were delicious.
Okay.
So that's one way of preserving them. I'll be writing more about that when I get into the canning part. But you can't mash canned potatoes. They taste awful. But if you keep them in the refrigerator, it signifies that it's about to be frozen, and so the potato starts to develop more sugars, and you don't want that. You want, obviously, a starchy potato. So it's super easy to do all this stuff. So I just want everybody to, and I used to buy seed potatoes. I no longer do that. I buy organic potatoes. I bring them home. I stick them in my drawer and then keep checking on them. And once they start forming the eyes, I'll cut them up and I'll stick them in the ground and grow them. And that's what I did with these. And I have 3 more beds to harvest. So,
Great.
oh yeah, and you wait until they start turning, the tops start turning yellow and dying back.
Yeah, so the green bushy part of the plant gets these beautiful flowers. You don't want to pick those, but they're really pretty. And you can get potato bugs, right? So you want to keep your eye out for those.
Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't have any problem with
Yeah.
that. So
But then, and
luckily.
then when the leaves start getting yellow, then you harvest them. You dig them up very carefully. Some people use a pitchfork, but just getting in there with your hands is probably the best thing you were saying.
Actually, I wish I would have waited a little bit longer to harvest them. I was telling Zen, I said, I saw these little itty bitty potatoes on some.
Yeah.
I was like, Zen
You
was like,
can leave those there.
ground.
Yeah, you can leave those in the ground and they can grow. And sometimes they'll even grow, you keep them all the year round, and the next year you can pick them up, So, yeah, the potatoes it's like, and harvesting potatoes is like a,
Treasure hunt.
like a treasure hunt. And so Anne did it, you did it in dirt, right, Anne? Or was it in pots?
No, I did it. I both. I've got it. I have that antique trunk that I got free on Facebook. I got potatoes growing in that, and I have four big pots that I'm growing in, and then I have another raised bed.
Okay. Yeah, I have an area in my garden that's probably like, I don't know, maybe just 12 feet by 12 feet or something like that, with, maybe 100, maybe 80 potato, spuds that the starts that I put in. And not all of them grow, but some of them grow a lot. And so if each one has, 10 potatoes or something like that, it's going to be a lot of potatoes. So I didn't figure out the math on it yet, because you always get less than what you wanted, to
I
get.
probably got 3 or 4 potatoes per plant.
Okay. All right. But I grew them in straw. So you can just slice off the top of the grass because we have red clay. And the potatoes don't really like that very much. So you can just scrape off the top of the grass and put the potato down and pile a whole bunch of straw on top. And for me, straw means no seeds. The S I connect to no seeds. Hay means seeds. Straw means no seeds. You want straw and you pile it on top, and then the potato will just, water it real good, and the potato will start to grow up through it. And then once you see the potato plant start coming through, you pile more straw on top till it's just the little leaf is coming out in the top, so then the roots will the leaves will come out and grow more potatoes. So you got to keep piling more straw on to have better, and then we also scatter some bunny poop around, for fertilizer. I don't know what other people do, but we have bunny poop, so we throw bunny poop everywhere, and that's a really good fertilizer. So we'll see. This year we should have the much better potato crop than last year because we have a better spot, more water, more straw, and we're not ready to harvest yet. I don't know how you're ready to harvest. When did you plant your potatoes?
That was the first bed that I planted. I don't remember. I have to be better at logging down when
I
I'm
think it
doing
was at
stuff.
least a month before me. I remember, if I remember correctly. Yeah, because people were selling seed potatoes in April, and I don't know why. I just put them in a paper bag and left them on top of my
Right.
my washer, and they did the sprouting thing. But I waited too long, and half of them got mushy and moldy, so I had to throw those out. So then I just cut up some other potatoes that I just got from the grocery store. So I don't know what.
Well, I let mine sprout too long, and some of the sprouts were like this long when Caesar, the little boy, came over. So we planted them, and I was thinking in my head that they weren't going to work because all the sprouts had basically fell over and looked like they died. So I thought, well, there goes that. But they regrew.
They did. Okay.
That's what I harvested.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, but yeah, don't let the sprouts get this long. When they start getting those little eyes, and you can get 4 or 5 chits, they're called. You get 4 or 5 chits from one potato, just as long as they have that little eye growing out. And
Okay, you cut the potato up so that at least it has 1 or 2 of the little eyes growing on it.
they say to leave them out for, they say after you cut them, leave them out in the air for a few days so that they'll dry a little bit and not get moldy. But I didn't do that either because this little boy was there and we had to do it, and it was fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it can grow a lot. Yeah. And Rich is saying be very careful with straw or manure because it could be contaminated. There's a YouTube link that he gave. So thank you, Rich, for providing that. Yes, there are, and there has been admissions, by organic fertilizer companies too, that there's been contamination. So it's really good to know your source. And I would highly recommend just getting a couple rabbits because they're really easy to take care of and they poop a lot, and you know exactly where your manure is coming from and you know what they eat. And
And you need to know what sex they are, Zen.
don't put them together. Let them get out. Very careful. It's just been, we have too many rabbits. Yeah. Rabbits right now. Yeah. But they're so cute. They're so cute. So what I feed my bunnies is I love the spring and summertime because I just go out in the mornings and I have an old tobacco blade. It's like a square blade from around here. They used to grow a lot of tobacco, and I just got it on the side of the road for a couple bucks. And I hack big bunches of grass. So I get grass, and I also go into my garden and I weed, and I take like the old lettuce, that's bolted, or I don't do too much spinach because they're not great with spinach and kale and all that. The oxalate's a little bit too much for the rabbits. The calcium is too much. It makes their pee white and stinky. So I get herbs. They love mint. They love basil. They love, any kind of herbs if they're starting to go. And clover. I always give them a little handful of plantain because plantain is antimicrobial, antibacterial, antifungal, all that kind of stuff. So if they've got, it just helps if there's anything going on with them, it helps keep them healthy. So I just grab a bunch of weeds basically and grass, and I give them a stack that's about the size of their body. And so then the kids give them about a half a cup of like alfalfa rabbit pellets at night so that they have something at night, or they give them a big, huge clump of hay. So we kind of alternate between hay and grass and rabbit pellets, but you don't have to give them rabbit pellets every day if you're giving them grass and hay. So that's what they eat. And yes, our buddies did kind of mow our lawn for a little bit. We had a rabbit tractor, but we feel like it's too small for more than one rabbit in it. So we do move that around a little bit. But the kids built a pen, and they're wily rabbits, right? They get out now and then. And when they get out, there's some rabbit out in the wild that keeps mating with them. So when they come back and we catch them, then they're pregnant. So that's what's happened a couple times, because we've had a few too many surprise litters. All of a sudden the rabbits are giving birth. Yeah. So, and yeah, we have to be careful of hawks. But we have in a place when we had them in the pen, which we're not doing anymore because they just keep getting pregnant. They get out, and then the neighbors complain. It becomes a problem because then the rabbits attract foxes, and then the foxes get the chickens, right? So then you've got neighbors that are angry at you because the fox is killing chickens because your rabbits got out. So it's animal husbandry, right? It's important to be responsible for your animals. So right now we're not letting them hop around in this pen until we get a new rabbit tractor, which we just ordered one. Hopefully it's not a scam. But if it was, then we're going to use a different one. We got one for $150 from a neighbor that was moving. So we're going to put them in that and just move that around so that they can mow the lawn. Yeah, and they do mow the lawn. They will get the grass down to the bare, and they'll dig too. So you have to be careful about them digging out.
So I back to the plantain.
Yeah.
I was telling you earlier, I was out in the garden this morning, and I don't know what happened, but I was like 15 feet away from the hives, and all of a sudden one of the honeybees stung me. And so I ran out into my yard, my organic pesticide-free yard, found the best piece of plantain I could, shoved it in my mouth, chewed it up, and slapped it on the sting. And I swear to God, it stopped the pain. It was fantastic.
Awesome. Yep, it works. It totally works. I put it on my husband's poison ivy recently too. It just helps with the burning of that. Yeah. So let's see what else. We're gonna close up. I'm gonna close up a little bit early tonight. I'm just drained and exhausted. But what else was there? Something. Oh, one other good news. We harvested our first corn from our Three Sisters plot, and it was delicious. And I had fun a couple weeks ago teaching my sons how to pollinate them. So you take the tassel from the very top and you break one off, and then you rub it on the silks. So I don't know if everybody knows this, but every single kernel of corn has a silk that is attached to it. That's what the silks are at the top of the corn. And so they all have to be pollinated in order for the kernel of the corn to grow. So because we did the Three Sisters method with only 3 or 4 stalks of corn per mound, and some of those seeds did not grow. So some of the mounds only have 1 or 2, right? So then you're less likely to get pollination when the corn is not grown close together like the modern cornfields. So we had to take the tassels and rub them on the silks and get them pollinated. And so my son was very proud to eat some corn that he helped, with making sure it was pollinated.
Gotta have that water boiling before you pick the corn.
Oh yeah, so that it's right away. You boil it and
the sugar starts turning to starch like immediately.
It's super sweet, yeah, super sweet and delicious. And I'm just really proud of ourselves that we finally grew corn. And it's so frustrating because whenever I go to the grocery store, it says fresh local corn, but it doesn't say if it's non-GMO or not, right? Or organic. Most of the corn that you get in the grocery store is not organic. So I'm really happy that we were finally able to eat some corn. And we went to a blueberry patch recently too and picked some blueberries. And the guy said he did not spray. So that was great. He said he fertilizes in February. His blueberry bushes are 21 years old and they're like 6 feet high. And he continually trims them. So they would be much bigger. And he only uses hollytone, which is a kind of acid that he puts in to fertilize them when they're dormant, not when they're, and so he has wires over the top of them with pieces of aluminum foil and little white strips of sheet hanging off them, and the white and the aluminum foil keeps the birds away. So he uses no pesticides, no netting.
Oh, I'm going to do that with my aronia bushes because all my aronia bushes are loaded with berries right now.
Yeah, you want to put wires over the top of them, pretty close to them, and strips of aluminum foil just from like a pie tin or whatever, something sturdy, and strips of white fabric. And so when it blows in the wind, the birds, they don't want to go there. So yeah, you don't have to Yeah, so Jody, yes, you can eat plantain directly. Yep, it's fine.
Yep.
Mhm. And you can make a tea out of it, and you can just, yeah, chew it up and eat it if you want to. Yeah, especially if you have stomach pain. It's really good for, I've had plantain tea, you know, it has maybe feeling like you're getting a bug or something like that.
It was a little bitter when I chewed it,
It
but
is bitter. Yeah.
I figured that the bitterness is what had the medicine in it for the bee sting.
Yeah, it's a little bitter, but
I can't even really tell where the sting was. I was very sad because I knew that bee wasn't going to make it
yeah.
after swearing.
Yeah, well, there's something good about bee stings. I don't remember what it is right now, but it boosts something. I don't know if anybody else knows what it is. But
Boosted my ability to curse.
thank you, Rich. He says huge gratitude and respect to us for connecting community and growing a higher vibe these days. Thank you, Rich. I appreciate it. Yeah, I just want to close by saying thank you all for coming on, you know, these calls. Most of you are so consistent. It's just really lovely to see your faces every week. And for those of you,
Send me pictures of your garden.
yeah, send Ann pictures of your garden. She wants to hear about that. And for those of you were that were new with us today, I'm sorry today's beginning part of the call was a bit of a downer. It's not usually like that. But that's just where we're at today in the world. And hopefully in talking about this, we all get to cope with it and deal with it, you know, somehow.
Well, Zen's part of the talk was not a downer, and it was very empowering. And so I suggest everybody watch it because I was literally like, "Yes, Zen." But she was, you know, taking some of the doctors to tasks and making them, and you know, even though they didn't show the audience when she was asking him, you could see some hands go up in front of the camera, so that was good. But it was such a good talk. Like I said, I watched it twice and 2.5 times actually.
Yeah,
So,
and the good news that came out of that, Christina Parks, who's a brilliant cellular microbiologist, is working with me now to get a letter to send it to the EPA, the CDC, and Congress, just from doctors and scientists and health providers. So I'm hoping to get thousands, like tens of thousands of doctors and scientists and health providers to tell the EPA that they are seeing the impacts of glyphosate in their patients. And if they don't do something about it, we're basically collapsing society here with glyphosate. So, you know, coming from a scientist or a doctor or healthcare provider, I think is going to be very impactful. So we're hoping to have that letter out to the EPA, CDC, and Congress soon. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Elise. Thank you, Rachel.
thanks, everybody.
Max, Sherry, Anne Marie, Tina, Kathy, Rich, Rose, Jen. Thank you, Anne.
Next week we have
oh yes, we next week we have Haley, who is from a community gardener. Yeah, she's a community garden expert. So we do have an expert. I know we haven't had one for a while. So we do have an expert next week. And if anybody wants any suggestions for the week after, a couple weeks after, you have any connections to any master gardeners, maybe a bee person, you know, anything that you're interested in, let us know. Okay, we'd love to have more guests on.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thanks to everybody being with us on the Neighborhood Food Network. Appreciate it. Take care. Bye-bye.